type of way.
We touched on this briefly yesterday. We didn't get a chance to dive into it, though. But Talmadge LeCroy lost for the season. Maneri confirmed that the other night. And you've been trying to figure out what you're doing at at catcher, since he's been out. I believe North Carolina was the last game that he ended up playing in. And, you've rotated through Bakes and through Balin and Coffer, and nobody is just consistent enough. And Maneri alluded to it the other day, that you don't have a catcher that's hitting over 200 as of right now. And that's a spot, again, going back to last year with Cole Messina, the past couple of years, where that was one of your most consistent spots in the lineup. And you just don't have that as of right now. And that's not the reason why this team is struggling. But my goodness, if you had a catcher that could hit, that certainly would help out this lineup 1 through 9 every day.
I'll take a line out of Paul's playbook for a second. You just are who you are, right? You don't have a good hitting catcher. That's not a exaggeration. You just don't. These guys are not hitting well at the plate at all. And defensively, I don't think any of them have been like, I know Paul has sung their praises to some extent by saying, Gavin Braylon's been great, a great receiver behind the plate and all that. Maybe that gives him a little bit of the edge. But none of these guys have really been great when you talk about throwing out runners on the base paths. It's just no one has, as he also put it, no one has taken the bull by its horns and kind of run with this job. Max Coffer has just looks lost at the plate. He's swinging for the fences, it looks like, every time. You have Ryan Bakes, who hasn't really played much at all this year, got the start the other night and had a hit, but defensively, I think Paul thought it could be a little better. And Braylon hasn't really hit at all, but he's been fine behind the plate. So I don't know what you do really here. I think you just kind of take what you can with these guys. And I just think you take the best defensive catcher at this point, because none of these guys have proven that they can hit.
Yeah, like you said, Maneri's go-to is kind of you have what you have at this point. And unfortunately, this is Major League Baseball. You can't go out there and make trades and make free agent pickups and all those kind of things. So you got to ride with the horses that you have as of right now. And again, you just hope that A&M used up all their runs this past weekend and all of their wins this past weekend in Tennessee, and you can find a way to win the series and instill a little shred of hope going forward that they might be able to turn this thing around.
Yeah, Thursday is going to be the most important game of the series, just like it was out at Mississippi State last Friday. You win game one, that kind of shell shocks A&M a little bit, to the point like, okay, they're back down to reality for a moment here, but you have to be able to take advantage of it, because that's what you didn't do last week when you're out in Starkville. You played a great game one, but you did nothing to capitalize off of it. And that's where the good pitching comes into play, where you can't be falling behind in 5-0, 6-0 holes, and your offense cannot be shutting down just at random. You have to be able to be a little bit more consistent. You find a way to win game one, you have a little bit more consistency. There is a chance to win this series, but I still see it as an uphill battle.
We'll see what happens tonight for game number one. First pitch is at 8 o'clock here locally in Columbia. Pregame coverage starting at 7:45 right here on the game. Jack, we'll let you catch your flight, and hopefully this time tomorrow we're talking about a win.
Yeah, hopefully so. And I'm looking forward to talking to you for the full hour tomorrow.
We'll keep rolling with the Extra Point live out at Pro Swing here in Forest Acres, hanging out all day long. 107.5 Game Crew, growing until 6 o'clock. You're on the game. Tyler here once again telling you about our friends over at Canty Foundation Specialists. We had a lot of rain come through the Midlands just the other day, and if you experienced that rain and you've got an open crawl space under your home, you might have some standing water underneath there. High humidity and condensation in that crawl space can invite things like mold, mildew, and termites into your home, which you absolutely do not want. The musty smells and awful odors from the mold, mildew in your home can affect your family's health, because about half the air that you breathe in your home comes from your crawl space. That's our friends at Canty Foundation Specialists come in. Go online to schedule an appointment today at cantycanfix.com. They'll send a professional out to your home to evaluate your foundation issues and your crawl space and get it fixed right so you and your family can live without worry going forward. Again, go online to schedule an appointment today at cantycanfix.com for our friends at Canty Foundation Specialist. Welcome back in. It is the Extra Point. Now just Tyler Head hanging out solo as Jack had to catch his flight out to College Station for tonight's baseball game between South Carolina and Texas A&M. But plenty of fun out here at Pro Swing again for day number 2. Hanging out here as the Masters have already gotten rolling. Had the ceremonial tee shot this morning at 7:30. If you were watching the early game, you saw Bill and Preston also have their own version of the ceremonial tee shot as Preston took a swing. I don't know how far it went, but he hit the ball. And at the end of the day, that's all that matters. So we've gotten things rolling. And we'll certainly be talking plenty of Masters over the course of the next couple of days as things are going on out there in Augusta, Georgia. Speaking of which, you can come to Pro Swing this week. Again, we're at 4708 Forest Drive, or give them a call at 803-528-1817 and find out how you could win tickets to go to the Masters for the final round coming up on Sunday. That winner is going to be announced on Friday afternoon on the post-game show with Jay and Elijah at 5:30. So, again, you can come out here or give them a call and find out how you could maybe be the lucky winner and be standing out there at Augusta National on Sunday when somebody's putting on that green jacket when it is all said and done. Get into the football conversation now, as today is another opportunity for the media to get to go out there and observe practice. So Wes and Chris out there right now, they'll come in at 11 o'clock and talk about what they did get to see out there, I do wonder, and we'll get an answer from them when they come out, what maybe differences there's going to be in terms of what they're able to see. Because, of course, the big headline over the past couple of days was Coach Beamer going on his rant based on the article about projected depth charts, which were written based off of drills and not 11 on 11 drill, 11 on 11 work, where you might, see a first team, a second team, and a third team. So does he just make it where the only thing that media gets to see is stretching today? Maybe so, to limit any kind of, what he deems to be bad information getting out in terms of what the projections of the depth chart and everything are. So again, we'll get Wes and Chris's answers on that coming up, and if they do get to observe actual drill work, what they do see coming up at 11 o'clock here a little bit later on in the Gamecock Central Takeover Hour presented by Firehouse Subs. But I do want to go back to Coach Beamer talking to the media on Tuesday. Now I got to keep up with my days of the week. We didn't get a chance to touch on everything yesterday, but one thing that he talked about, this will be cut number 6 from yesterday's list here, Dave, is the timeline on determining the backup quarterback. Breaking news, Lenore Sellers is going to be your starter this year. I know, surprising, right? But you have a group of young guys behind him fighting for that number 2 spot. And it's not as easy as just saying, well, Aaron Nolan's the most talented. Of course, he's going to be the second guy behind Lenore Sellers. But here's Coach Beamer giving a little more perspective on the timeline of figuring that out this offseason.
Yeah, I don't think it's anything, David, coming out of spring practice where you say we have to say this is the backup or the number 2 guy, because to me that's a competition that is ongoing. It really is. Dante has done some nice things. Air did some nice things on Saturday. Cutter Woods, right before I came in here, led his offense that he was out there on the field with down the field during a 2-minute drill and made some nice throws to kick a field goal in the last play of practice to win it, if you will. So all those guys are doing some good things. I haven't talked to Mike about it, Coach Shula, but in my mind, it's one of those, coming out of the spring, that competition's ongoing, and let's get through this, compete through the summer, early in the training camp. But certainly when you start talking about, dividing up reps as you start getting ready for the first game, that really would need to be about a week and a half out, 10 days to 2 weeks out would be the thing in my mind. But if we know this guy is going to be the backup, then, go ahead and make that decision when we're ready to.
And he brings up a good point. It's not something you have to figure out right this second. Last year and we knew in spring practice last year, this was 99% going to be Lenore Sellers' job, more likely than not. And, Beamer named him the starter coming out of spring. And we didn't figure Robbie Ashford was really going to be too big of a threat to Lenore Sellers. But Robbie Ashford did end up playing a vital role on this team last year because we did see Sellers get nicked up quite a few times. Missed the second half of the LSU game, sat for precautionary reasons against Akron, which Robbie Ashford helped the team win pretty handily in that one. But there were several other various points during the season where he got nicked up and missed a couple plays or a drive or whatever it may be. And you had a good, experienced quarterback behind him in Robbie Ashford that was able to step in and fill his shoes when his number was called. Now, again, Sellers was always going to be your better option, but you felt like Robbie Ashford could keep things afloat when Sellers went down. And he, for the most part, was certainly able to do that. So now you go from a guy that had been at 2 prior schools at Oregon and Auburn, and Robbie Ashford, before coming here, starting several of those games at Auburn, to now a group of guys behind him that have no starting experience. Aaron Nolan, yeah, he was a highly touted high school prospect, but he didn't play a single snap at Ohio State a year ago in a crowded quarterback room. Dante Reno played a few snaps here last year in garbage time. So you can't really glean a whole lot from that. Trying to remember if he even threw a pass. If he did, it wasn't too many. Mainly just handed the ball off and running the clock out. And then Cutter Woods, again, another guy pretty highly touted out of high school, but that's high school. This is college. That's very, very different. And, you hope you're not in a situation where you desperately need to use your backup quarterback. You hope that, hey, you're blowing everybody out by 40 or 50 points, and those guys are getting out there just to run the clock down and, get some garbage minutes. But again, with a quarterback like Sellers that is mobile, one that does have a history of injuries already up to this point, there's always that opportunity that you're going to need to call one of those guys to go in there and handle things for a while, maybe a drive or two, maybe half a game, maybe a full game, who knows? And it's tough to say who exactly that's going to be as of right now. And again, the prevailing thought in everyone's mind is that it's Aaron Noland, because again, this is a guy that was a big time quarterback coming out, went to Ohio State, and didn't see himself starting there because Julian Sayin seems to be taking over this year, but somebody that could have gone to a lot of different places and maybe been a starter right away if he chose to do that. But he came to South Carolina because he likely sees a pathway to becoming a starter, but that doesn't mean he's going to be handed the keys to the number 2 spot right away. He's got to earn it. And you heard Beamer talk about it. Those guys have all done respectively well so far in spring through scrimmages and drills and all those kind of things. So you don't have anybody really setting themselves apart as of right now. And I go back to something that I've already said about this. I think at least for the beginning of the season, you probably would have Luke Doty as your backup quarterback, right? I get it. He's primarily a wide receiver right now, but he's been wearing the green non-contact jersey at practice. So he's doing quarterback work. And there's a reason for that. If you felt like you had enough experience behind Lenore Sellers at quarterback, and you could safely say, yeah, we know if Sellers goes down or we need somebody, then one of these guys is going to be able to do fine. You wouldn't have Luke Doty doing quarterback stuff in the springtime, right? It's more of a precautionary thing. And I think as the season goes along and development continues, and you maybe get these guys some reps in games, you can feel more comfortable saying, okay, now Aaron Noland is our number 2 guy, or Cutter Woods or Dante Reno, whoever it may be, because again, it's an open competition at this point in time, so anything is possible. But again, game number 1 against Virginia Tech, let's say Sellers goes down on the second drive of the game and has to sit out for a few plays or a few drives. It's probably Luke Doty, right? Unless just between now and then, one of those guys just takes off and runs with it and is far and away the better of the 3 and is comparable to what Sellers is doing, where you're safe to say, okay, that's our number 2. But until we get that confirmation, again, there's no rush on it because it's backup quarterback. If this, again, was a starter, then we'd be, anxiously waiting to see who it's going to be. But since it's backup, you can take your time on this a little bit more. And like you said, wait till that, week, 10 days before the season to really get an idea to make sure it's vetted out and you're having good competition there. But that is a spot that, again, knock on wood, I think this table next to me is wood. You hopefully you don't need, but again, especially with a mobile quarterback, you're always going to have that worry in the back of your mind. If you do have to turn the reins over to somebody else, how they're going to be able to handle things. And again, it's not easy when you look at a room that, again, is largely inexperienced or completely inexperienced as of right now for everybody outside of, Luke Doty and Lenore Sellers. So we'll see how that progresses. Again, most people would say it's going to be Aaron Noland, and we'll see if it does end up being that way by the time the season does roll around. Speaking of quarterbacks, Ari Wasserman and Andy Staples yesterday on their podcast discussing their top 10 quarterbacks across college football for 2025. Sellers pretty high on that list. We'll let you listen to that coming up next. It is the Extra Point. We are live out at Pro Swing here in Forest Acres. Once again, hanging out all day long, going up until 6 o'clock here in the game. Welcome back in. It is the Extra Point. It's our head broadcasting live here at Pro Swing in Forest Acres. And again, the 107.5 game crew hanging out here all day long. Wes and Chris will be out here with me at 11. Terry from noon to 3, and then Jay and Elijah from 3 until 6. As the Masters are officially underway out there at Augusta National. The selective groups getting rolling as the morning and as the day rolls along. And then it's 4 days of golf and figuring out who's going to be in contention on that back nine come Sunday to see who ends up taking home the Masters Championship. And by the way, it's looking like a fantastic weekend weather-wise out there in Augusta. Obviously, some rain passing through earlier on this week, but everything looking pristine as always. And that's what you root for, right? You root for just a good weekend of golf in general. And whether you're there in person or watching it on TV, beautiful scenery and a nice sunny backdrop to highlight what is the most pristine and beautiful golf course on the face of the earth. And that seems to be in the cards for this upcoming weekend. As we get back into the football discussion, Lenore Sellers, as expected, is garnering a lot of hype this offseason, right? When you had the performance that he had in the back half of last year, and South Carolina being one of those teams that was on the bubble for making the college football playoff, naturally, as this offseason rolls along, you're going to be hearing his name brought up a lot. He's going to be put on a lot of lists. He's going to be called, the best this, the best that, or one of the best this, one of the best that. And that's already been starting, going up to the end of last year. But it continues as we're going through spring ball. Looking at the Heisman odds as of right now, he is 1, 2, 3, 6. I believe he's 8th overall on Heisman odds as of right now per FanDuel.com. And, he's up there with the who's who of names, including Garrett Nussmeier, Arch Manning, Kate Klubnik from Clemson, Dante Moore, Julian Sayin, who's taken over at Ohio State, Nico Iamaleava at Tennessee. Like, again, the who's who of quarterbacks in college football. Lenore Sellers finding his name right there in the mix. And the other day, Andy Staples of On3 put out his list of who he believes are the top 10 quarterbacks of college football going into the 2025 season. And I'll be honest with you, I don't know how many people would have expected number 1, number 2 to be DJ Lagway and Lenore Sellers. Now, I don't have a problem with those two being at the top of the list, but I feel like most national pundits wouldn't have been so bold to put those two guys at the top. But I can respect the reasoning behind it. And let's hit cut number 5 here, Dave. Here is Andy Staples talking about Lenore Sellers being his number 2 overall quarterback and the fact that he just raises the ceiling of South Carolina.
Yeah, I'm very excited to see this because I think Lenore Sellers raises it's similar to the DJ Lagway conversation. Like Lenore Sellers, by merely existing, raises South Carolina's ceiling. He raises everyone else on the team. He makes them all better. I think DJ Lagway may have a little bit better supporting cast right now, and it's up to South Carolina's receiver group to prove me wrong on that. Like, yeah, I want Nick Harbor to become the Nick Harbor of the video game. I think we get that. We see even more from Lenore Sellers because I think he was doing it a lot on his own last year is what it felt like. Now, they had a freshman receiver last year who was pretty good, Mazio Bennett. I think, he gets better. You get a little more out of him. I'm excited for what Lenore Sellers can be, and I hope he can stay healthy as well because I feel like that they lose to Ole Miss and it wasn't really close, but Lenore Sellers was hurt, and I think there was a lot to do with that too. So I'm really hopeful that we get fully healthy Lagway and Sellers seasons here. Because I think they could be so special.
And he's absolutely right about that. And there's no denying, we'd all agree here locally, that Lenore Sellers did a lot of heavy lifting on offense last year because he didn't have, the supporting cast around him playing at the level that you needed to be at that next level of a program, a team that would have been in the college football playoff. Of course, the offensive line was woeful last year, and he made them look better at the end of the season because he stopped getting sacked as much because it looked like somebody slathered him in butter and he was hard to bring down. But they're still giving up a lot of pressure, but he made them look better by just his physicality and his athleticism going out there and making plays happen. Obviously, the Clemson game being the most famous of those, where he makes the run on 3rd and 16 for what would be the game-winning touchdown. And you hope, as Andy Staples said, that those guys around him are going to be better overall this season, and they step up and provide him a better complement of not just weapons, but supporting cast. Like you said, again, the offensive line being probably priority number one in terms of just blocking for him better, so he's not running for his life and having to make those Houdini type of plays left and right, because he's being able to sit back there in the pocket and let things develop downfield and, making plays through the air and those kind of things. I think it's interesting too as well that Lagway and Sellers are at the top of this list, because I feel like those are two guys that are going to be getting compared to each other a lot as the season rolls along. And unfortunately, as they alluded to on their podcast there, Andy Staples and Ari Wasserman, these are two programs that don't play each other annually anymore. That was between that, Georgia, and Tennessee, it was very weird for South Carolina to not play any of those three annual opponents that they had obviously seen every single year since joining the SEC 30 years ago. And, you definitely feel like this season you're missing out on a prime quarterback matchup with Lenore Sellers and DJ Lagway if South Carolina and Florida were able to square off against each other. Now, I guess theoretically, yeah, they could play each other in the SEC championship game. But again, in terms of the actual 12-game schedule that we know is going to be played, that is not going to happen. But, DJ Lagway definitely does have a better returning cast around him than what South Carolina has and Lenore Sellers has here at South Carolina. When you look at the S&P Plus returning production from last year, Florida's 18th overall, South Carolina is 71st. And the returning defensive production is similar, but it's really the defense where it creates this disparity. South Carolina is 99th in returning defensive production, which makes sense. You got a lot of guys heading off to the league, a lot of experienced seniors and stuff that are not going to be back this year. And Florida's returning a lot of production. They are 25th in the nation in returning defensive production. And I know we kind of think about supporting cast being around Lenore Sellers being mainly on offense when it comes to the weapons, the offensive line, stuff like that. But your defense is supporting cast too. If you have a defense that is shutting out opponents and holding them to 10, 12 points a game, that makes life for a quarterback a whole lot easier. If you have a defense that's allowing 35 or 40 points a game, makes life on a quarterback a lot tougher. Look at Jaden Daniels a couple seasons ago when he won the Heisman Trophy at LSU. That was an offense and a quarterback that should have been good enough to play for a national championship or be in the mix for the college football playoff. But because their defense was so atrocious, they were giving up 45 points a game, and Jaden Sellers had to go out there and outscore everybody, which he did for the most part, save for a couple games. But you don't want that to be the case with South Carolina. Yeah, you'd love to score 50 points a game, but if you're giving up 48, that can only get you so far. So you need everybody around him to step up. And again, we have so many unknowns and questions this offseason with so many positions. You just don't know what you're going to have. And at the beginning of the season, it may be a situation where that Sellers is having to do a lot of heavy lifting because he just doesn't have a developed cast around him that you hope is going to improve as the season goes along, much like he did a season ago. By the way, DJ Lagway gets back his leading rusher and returns most of his offensive line, two things that Lenore Sellers does not have here at Carolina, as you're replacing your leading rusher, and we don't know what the heck the offensive line is going to look like. There's a few returning starters, more likely than not, from what last year's starting five is going to be, but it's still very much a work in progress and something that we're all kind of on the edge for to see how that plays out as the spring does end up rolling along. But again, get used to seeing Lenore Sellers on these lists as the season rolls along, as the offseason rolls along, because he's going to be thought of as one of the better quarterbacks in college football. I don't know if anybody's going to put him at number one, but he's definitely going to be floating around a lot of people's top 10 based on what we saw last year. And you only hope that's going to be even better on the field this year, to where, as much as we love him to hang around for 26 as well, if he plays well enough to be drafted next year, then that hopefully means South Carolina has a really, really good season, maybe making the playoffs themselves. And we all, tell them best of luck and go off to the NFL and go make millions of dollars that way. But we'll certainly have to see because, again, it's a long off season, a lot of time between now and when the season starts. But one area you do feel comfortable in is quarterback with Lenore Sellers compared to some of these other spots that do have a lot of question marks. We'll come back and wrap up hour number one of the Extra Point out here at Pro Swing in Forest Acres. Bill Belichick run along spring practice out there in Chapel Hill. We'll hear a little bit about that and also talk about one of the guests that he had hanging out with the team this week. That's coming up next. Extra Point, Tyler Head along with you on your Thursday on the Game. All right, welcome back in. It is the Extra Point. Tyler Head hanging out here at Pro Swing on Forest Drive out in Forest Acres. Again, we are hanging out here all day long. Once again, as the Masters is rolling, you've got groups rolling out with their respective tee times as the morning of the day rolls along. And again, you can't glean a whole lot from round number one. It's really once you get into the middle rounds and the cut and all that kind of stuff to kind of figure out who the contenders are. But nice to see everybody out there on the golf course. Again, pristine conditions out there at Augusta National for the next couple of days, and excited to follow that as we go through Masters weekend. Of course, one of the big storylines in the offseason for college football is Bill Belichick out at the University of North Carolina, Chapel Bill, as we like to call him. He was mic'd up at practice the other day. Cut number 6 here, Dave. Here's a little quick snippet of what Bill Belichick sounds like coaching college football.
Go one-on-one. Mondo, we got to get the gloves on these guys. Just holding on every play, usually twice. Hey, good route. That's the right idea. It's close. Good job on the split safeties. Yeah. We hit them in no huddle. We hit them here. At least we're throwing the ball to the right place. Second down. We're live. Tackle in front. Tackle in front. This is live. It's live. Tackle in front. Stay off the quarterback.
You don't want me to hit him from the side, do you?
No, just we know you got him. Get on the sideline. Tag off. Tag off. Stay up the quarterback. Tag off on the runners. This is not live. This is not live, but we're competing here.
Sounds like a football coach. Again, it's spring practice, so you don't glean too much from that. But he's as engaged as ever. And again, for a guy that sat on the sidelines for an entire year last year, watching the NFL pass him by, getting back out there probably feels pretty good. And we'll see what that intensity is like as the offseason rolls along. We get into fall camp, and obviously the season get rolling, and things start to really matter in terms of games counting and all that kind of stuff. But the Bill Belichick experiment at North Carolina is one of the more fascinating things I think we've seen in college football in a while. And again, his success at the NFL level clearly speaks for itself, and nobody's denying him as being one of the, if not the greatest coaches in the NFL of all time. But there's so many more factors when it comes to coaching college football with recruiting and development and all those kind of things that you don't have to deal with in the NFL. And again, if anybody could do it, maybe it is Bill Belichick, but we'll have to see and wait to see what the results are. Because again, that's a North Carolina program that, was not like dangerously far away from the top, I guess. The Mac Brown years maybe didn't go as perfectly as some people thought they were going to. And again, he kind of was seemingly pushed out the door at the end of last year to be hired by, to only be replaced by a guy a year younger than him. But we'll see. Again, it's going to be fascinating to follow, and definitely going to be no lack of headlines once we get in the season. But he's also making plenty of headlines this offseason as well, whether it's what he's doing with his very much younger girlfriend out and about in the sports world, or who he's inviting to football practice. I don't know if you saw this, but Lil Wayne was hanging out there the other day at North Carolina spring practice, and the official UNC football Twitter account posted the picture of them, and it just says two legends. Now, the first question I ask is, do you think Bill Belichick has any idea who Lil Wayne is? Do you think on his Spotify playlist, the Carter 3 is on there at all? I would say probably not. But it is just funny seeing a picture of these two guys together. And I talked about this with Terry the other day. Y'all also kind of wonder, is that like the most relevant artist to today's 18 to 22-year-olds? And I'm not trying to sound like an old man here. I'm 28 years old. But, when I was in high school a decade ago now, Lil Wayne was still at like the top of the rap game. Everybody either you loved or hated him, right? But he was still a high-profile figure in rap, and he's still putting out music, obviously, and I'm still a fan of his myself. But I don't know if does he still move the needle as much for 18 to 22-year-olds? I'm asking the question because I don't know necessarily myself, and I guess I don't want Bill Belichick to seem like he's dated to his players, because like, hey, this guy was big, years ago, but maybe not as much today. Again, his effect on the rap game and his influence on everything cannot be denied, but that doesn't mean that, I guess, today's crop of kids, again, who were born in anywhere between 2005 and 2001, maybe don't have the same respect for him, or don't have the same fandom for him that somebody of my age group might have from, again, a decade ago. I don't know. It's a funny thought to think about. But we'll see who else Bill can drag out there to UNC football practice. Obviously, a lot of celebrity fans in Boston. North Carolina's a little bit of a different story, and we'll see if it can become kind of a who's who of practices, much like those Southern Cal practices, and more recently, Dion and Colorado have been for these, this past couple of years where you just never knew who's going to turn up at one of those things. But again, the North Carolina storyline with Bill Belichick going to be a fun one to follow this offseason. Coming up next, it is the Gamecock Club Hour presented by Krantz Schooling Heating. We've got Wes sitting down with Lenore Sellers as well as Mazio Bennett, and then Chris sitting down with Anthony Addison as well. So a lot of great perspectives of Gamecock football as spring practice rolls along. Again, all that coming up in the Gamecock Club Hour presented by Krantz Schooling Heating as we continue our day hanging out here, day number 2 at Pro Swing in Forest Acres as we celebrate the beginning of the Masters tournament out there in Augusta. It's the Extra Point. Tyler Head along with you here on the game.
All right, everybody, welcome into another episode of the Gamecock Club Hour presented by our friends at Krantz Cooling and Heating. I'm Wes Mitchell, joined by a very special guest. It is QB1, South Carolina quarterback Lenoris Sellers. The Gamecocks working through spring ball right now. Lenoris kind enough to join us. So, Lenoris, let's start right there, man. First of all, how are you doing? And second of all, how do you think spring ball has gone so far, man?
I think it's going pretty good. Spring ball just a time for like trial and error, see what you got, see what the young guys got, see what new transfers and everything got. Picking up from last year really with offensively, defensive scheme, stuff like that, and just competing against each other. So I think it's been going pretty good. The young guys coming along, transfers coming along good competition. So it's going pretty good in my opinion.
Yeah, man. So I know this is your first off season with Coach Shula as the OC, but one thing Coach Beamer has talked about is that he liked that continuity of having him still here after he worked with you so much last year. So how has that been, just kind of, I guess, just getting settled in what in some ways is a new scheme, but at the same time is a coach that you've been working with for quite a bit now, man?
Like you said, we just continued the same relationship from last year. I think once we found out he was going to be the OC or whatever, we got straight into it. He changed some stuff around, changed some verbiage, put in some new stuff, making sure I liked everything, was comfortable with everything. Added some stuff that I like, stuff that he liked, stuff that like guys he brought in like. So we just kept the relationship going.
No doubt, man. So I remember like your first year and Spencer's second year, a lot of talk with the staff was how Spencer could kind of take a little bit more ownership with the offense in terms of just saying the stuff he really liked and building it around his skill set. Do you feel like going into year two, you're maybe feeling a little bit more empowered to also have a little bit more say in sort of exactly what you like in terms of how y'all approach things on offense?
Yeah, I do. And it feels good. I know last year was just kind of just competing for the starting job, first year in it. So I was kind of like taking it all in fast or whatever. But I feel like now since I've played, I got the system like down packed and all that. Changing stuff is not really as big of a deal as you might think. It's just like a quick, easy fix. They communicate it and then it gets changed. So
yeah, and so you mentioned off the top there, Lenoris, kind of getting a feel for the young players, the new guys coming in, the transfers coming in. I think we've all kind of been impressed, not just with the returning receivers, but also with that freshman class, including your brother. How has just the rapport been in terms of just starting to get a feel for all the nuances of throwing to a pretty talented receiver group, man?
Yeah, it's different. Just because they just come out of high school, whatever. First time out of high school, they're supposed to still be in high school. So it's different. They got to get used to the speed. Coming along good. So yeah, but I'm excited to work with them. It's good working with them, so I'm having fun.
And in that same light, man, can you speak a little bit to the progress you've seen from like Nick Harbor, from Mazio, Vandrevius Jacobs, Jared Brown, like that group? I know it seems like those guys as a whole have taken a step forward. What do you see from them, like your second year with them now compared to maybe last year?
Yeah, pretty much the same thing. Last year, they were just taking it all in with Dre, JB, Mazio being a freshman, JB and Dre coming in. Nick played my freshman year, so he had the game experience and everything, but those guys last year were just learning the system, taking it all in, like I said, and this year they just got another year under their belt already, so it's just like clockwork to them, really.
Yeah, no doubt, man. One big conversation I think that Coach Shula has had with the media is kind of that, I guess, next progression with you in terms of when to run, when to take off, when to maybe hang in there a little bit longer. I mean, man, I feel like that's always going to be a conversation with a dual threat quarterback, a guy that can throw or run, is how much should you run? How much should you throw? But how do you feel like that progression is just coming along in terms of exactly how y'all want that, I guess, balance would be, how you want that balance to be in terms of run versus, passing?
I think this is the perfect time really to practice it, because it's like in practice, quarterbacks aren't live. So if you get you get tap, you're pretty much like down like when they get a sack or whatever. So in the pocket, in practice and stuff, if you can't really run because as soon as you get touched, you're down. So you might as well just stay in the pocket, go through your progressions and stuff like that. So I feel this is a good time to do it now. the summer, fall camp, and all that, just because we're not live.
Yeah, no doubt, man. I want to go real quick, a little bit big picture, Lenoris, and talk about. I'm sure you've talked about it since then, but can you take us back to the Clemson game just briefly? The 3rd and 16. I know you've talked about the play itself, but I'm curious what was kind of going through your head as you saw that play kind of developing in front of you, and then after you took off, did you know immediately? All right, could you see the green grass? Like, hey, I'm scoring on this play. Was it more? It kind of developed as it went. What was just sort of going on in your helmet as what is now one of the biggest plays in recent memory was sort of taking place?
Yeah. So I mean, I knew there was gonna be a man coverage. There was a big man team. They mixed in a lot more zone than we had originally planned for, but I knew they was gonna have a quarterback spot, man coverage. So it's kind of like they might have added on pressure or whatever. So I only really had time to go through my first two progressions down to the check down, which was the back, and then pretty much run. So I mean, once I took my drop, went to my progression, the line like opened up in front of me, and I saw the green grass. And then I knew they had a quarterback spot, but the way we pass protected that game was kind of like once they saw me step up, they just went and go block the QB spot. So once they did that, it was just pretty much like open grass. Once I put the move on the first guy, it was just, I mean, they didn't want to tackle me. So saw the end zone, just ran and went score.
Yeah, obviously special moment, man. Do you think teams, as the word got out about you and your ability and what you could do, especially breaking tackles and stuff like that, did they start to have to adjust, like you said, Clemson did, and play a little bit more zone, kind of all eyes on you, all eyes on the quarterback, just to kind of account for your legs in terms of their game plans against you just in general?
Yeah, and I knew that was going to eventually happen just playing football for so long. You can't you can't just play man and have everybody chasing the receiver down the field. If you got a quarterback that can run, D'Lo told me that last season. He told us this. I forgot which game it was. But teams going to just start playing more zone to get more eyes on me. I think Bama or Ole Miss was the first team to do it, and then that's when we knew that we was going to probably expect it more. And then that's when Illinois came out, played pretty much zone the whole game when they played man all season, kept all eyes on me, QB spots and stuff like that. So I mean, you're just looking forward to it now.
Yeah, no doubt. Okay, we're halfway through spring. Is there anything other than just getting better overall, anything you're kind of personally focused on the most in terms of improving your game these last 2 weeks going into the spring game?
Yeah, just bringing those younger guys along, building the chemistry with the offense, making sure me and Boaz on the same page with protections and all that. Me and RJ on the same page with protections and all that. The running backs are good. The receivers good, like I said. And then just bringing the team along better, just showing them the ways of how we do things. So,
yeah. You feel like you've become kind of more of a leadership guy this year as you're in year 2 as the starter. Like you said, this time last year, you were just kind of trying to win that job. Do you feel like you're a more vocal guy this time compared to last year?
I do. And I'm trying to be, it's not really like I don't want to say get out of my comfort zone thing, but I was just never a talkative guy really. So, I mean, I'm trying to be, I know we got a bunch of like younger guys, new guys on the team. The guys that was on the team last year, like heard me talking stuff, but I think I need to be that voice for the young guys and transfer guys coming in.
You mentioned Boaz and RJ there at center. We've got to interview both of those guys, man. Just super impressive. Like, seem to fit the culture of South Carolina football very well, and just outside looking in, seem to fit like right into the locker room. But what can you tell us kind of about the newcomers there on the O-line and what you've seen working with them personally?
Pretty much they just step right in. Honestly, the offensive line has always been one of the hardest working groups in the room. Meeting time, extra meeting time, going up to the facility, watching film and stuff together. They just kind of went in and did that too, with Boaz being a center, stepping into the shoes of Rashawn. I mean, Rashawn was pretty much the smartest guys that the offensive line had last year, and that's the same with Boaz. He's learning. He picked up on it quick, and then so far we've been on the same page. He knows everything, how everything should be. If he needs to change something, he'll change it. So he has that confidence in his ability. So I'm confident in him.
No doubt. Again, we're closing things out here with Lenoris Sellers, South Carolina quarterback. Lenoris, how do you feel like the progress has been in the quarterback room just around you? I know Coach Beamer has talked about a bunch of those guys kind of competing for QB2. And you got Luke back in there a lot now as well as kind of a veteran guy. I got to imagine just having Luke's energy and experience in there is pretty good for that room overall too.
Yeah, I mean, younger guys. We had Cutter come in, we had Air come in. Just guys who haven't really played, but are good enough guys to play. They're smart. Cutter's smart. He was in state championship, played against my brother last year. And no one's at Ohio State, who had a loaded QB room, but they're coming along good, asking questions, getting used to everything, asking me questions, not being afraid to make mistakes. They go out there and they play free. And we got Dante, we got Jimmy Francis, who was there last year, who knows the system and all that. They're just being those helping hands for those guys. There's no really like animosity in the room or anything like that because, I mean, we're all competing at the end of the day, so we all got to help each other because only one guy can play, and if one is successful, all is successful. So we're in the whole net against each other, and we're just having fun together with Shula, Ben, and Davis.
For sure. And final thing, Lenoris, what has it been like to just have your brother there? I know when you're on the field, he's kind of got to be just another teammate within a play, but I'm sure it's got to be kind of special. I know your family is important to you. They're at your events and stuff like that. So what has that meant to also have Jaden there too, and just have the whole Sellers family kind of experience all this together?
I mean, yeah, it's good. It's special. We played together in high school, but I mean, to play at the SEC level, I mean, it's crazy. I mean, just in practice, just throwing with him and all that, it's just something that he got to get used to. Yes, but I mean, I think he's coming along. He's adjusted to it well. He's never been the type to shy away from somebody that was like bigger, faster, stronger than him. So I mean, it's exciting to see him go out there and compete with those older guys, and not be afraid to do it. So I think the first touchdown between us will be really special.
No doubt. We all look forward to that, man. And Lenoris, once again, we want to thank you for taking the time. Good luck the rest of the spring. We look forward to talking to you again soon. And just go do your thing, okay, man?
Yes, I appreciate it.
If you're out there looking for a local, reliable HVAC service for your home or your business in the Midlands, reach out to our friends over at Krantz Cooling and Heating, KrantzCooling.com, Krantz, cooling with a K, KrantzCooling.com, or give Justin Krantz, the general manager over there, and his team a call, 803-755-0793. I've had Krantz Cooling out to my home several times. They did a mini split for me in the garage. They've checked out all the other units at my house to make sure they're running in tip-top shape. Love my experience so much that when my mom moved to Irmo, I got them to go out to her home too. They put in 2 mini splits for her. They handle all her HVAC needs as well. They could do the same for you. KrantzCooling.com or 803-755-0793. Since 1983, Krantz Cooling, their team has been providing great service to business owners and families in the Midlands. They can do the same for you.
All right, guys, welcome back in another episode of your Gamecock Club Hour here on The Game. Of course, brought to you by our friends at Krantz Cooling and Heating. Another special guest from South Carolina football joining us, South Carolina rising sophomore wide receiver, Mazio Bennett. Going through spring practice right now, Mazio, so I know you guys are busy.
Yep.
Appreciate you taking the time, man. How you been doing?
Man, I've been doing great, man. Excited to be back out there, starting back up spring ball, out there playing football, what we love to do.
No doubt, man. So going into year 2 now, I'm sure it comes with a certain level of just confidence and comfort level and just kind of knowing what you're stepping into a little bit. So can you kind of speak to that for us a little bit, just what it's been like stepping into year 2 of spring ball after everything you've gone through kind of the last year or so?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, it's just been a blessing, you know what I'm saying? Coming in, being able to be a freshman, getting a good bit of PT, like just having that experience to kind of bleed over into my sophomore year. I feel definitely more comfortable out there. Like, I know what I'm doing. I know what the defense is doing. Like, everything is it feels just even more natural than it did last year.
Yeah, what do you feel like you took away from last year, man? I mean, I remember freshman year in high school, Mazio, who busting his tail to get recruited, and you kind of had that vision already. I feel like of playing major college football. I know you had high expectations for yourself coming in as a true freshman. You're able to get out there, play a lot, make some big plays. Just what was it actually kind of experiencing something you had been dreaming of for a long time last year as a true freshman?
Man, it felt awesome. You know what I'm saying? It felt good knowing that all that work paid off from coming to my freshman to my senior year of high school. Like, just coming from high school to college, that's something I took to heart. You know what I'm saying? Going through the year, I had very high expectations for myself, so I held myself to a high standard, whether that was at practice, in the game, and it just made me grow up a lot, and it made me realize that I can compete, and it's just football at the end of the day.
For sure. So you come in, Mike Fury takes over as wide receivers coach. He jokes that he was recruiting you at Limestone as well already. So
he definitely was, man. That's crazy. Like, he was definitely recruiting me at Limestone. He used to be in contact with my dad a lot. And I used to be like, man, I'm not going to Limestone, dog. I'm trying to play on the big screen. But, man, God got a way of making things work out. So, man, that was awesome.
Yeah, so he gets in, man, and obviously us on the outside, like we see the resume. We see he played in the NFL, coached in the NFL.
Yeah.
Like you're with him on a day-to-day basis. So what has it been like just kind of under the tutelage of Coach Fury, just kind of soaking everything up with him? What's he like as a coach on a day-to-day basis?
Man, I feel like Coach Fury, one of the smartest dudes that I know. You know what I'm saying? The knowledge of the game that he has, the mindset that he has for us as wide receivers, like the teaching that he does in that meeting room that we have every day. I mean, it's awesome and it's second to none. And I feel like Coach Fury has taught me so much about the game of football from a wide receiver standpoint and just from a overall player standpoint that I didn't know coming into college. And I'm just so blessed and grateful for him.
He's talked so far this spring when he did his press conference about you. He said lots of good stuff. First of all, your gains in the weight room and just kind of continue to develop your body, mature into your body, but just your physical gains in the weight room. Can you kind of speak to what this offseason meant for you, like winter workouts, having a full, offseason with Coach Day and that group? A lot of your teammates brag on the program. I know it's difficult, but that it works. So what can you tell us about kind of your personal gains in the weight room with that staff?
Honestly, the weight room coaches, they say it all the time. This is something Coach Day stand by, and it's really just knowing what time it is. You know what I'm saying? As a freshman, you just thinking about the whole time, just think about playing football. You know what I'm saying? That's the only thing I'm thinking about, and that's the only thing you want to do. But when you go through that program and you go through it 1 year and you just feel like you just got to know what time it is. You know what I'm saying? Knowing what time it is, and that's going to boost you to take you wherever you need to go. Because if you go in there in the weight room thinking about football, you're not going to get what you want out of it. So if you go in there wanting to work, wanting to get stronger, wanting to get faster, like that what you put in the ground, it's going to grow. You know what I'm saying? So that's really what the mindset that I took into this year. Like, man, I gotta do this stuff in the weight room so it can translate over to the field and not think vice versa.
Yeah, also on the field, he complimented your improvement as a route runner. Now, I know from you working out with Coach Bobby McGowan, you were already a guy that I felt like was pretty developed coming in as a freshman in terms of your route running. I know working with him was important for you growing up, but How have you kind of tried to take that next leap, that next step in terms of route running?
Oh, I feel like I've always been able to run routes, but when they get to college, it's not about who can, you know what I'm saying, run. It's really about knowing what the defense is doing. You know what I'm saying? That can project what route you're doing and how you should run that route and just the different variations of the route that you can do. So I really feel like the knowledge of my game that I've grown, and that's the aspect I've grown in. I feel like I've been able to run routes for a good period of time, but it's the knowledge of the game and why I'm running this route the way I'm running it and how I'm running it based on what the defense is doing to get the ball. So I mean, it's just that's the part of route running that I feel like that I've definitely improved in for sure.
And I would have to think, man, going into a year two with the same QB in terms of you knowing all of his little tendencies and intricacies, him knowing yours.
Yeah.
How much do you feel like the rapport with you and Sellers has kind of just developed over the years? I know y'all connected on a lot of passes last year, but I got to imagine it only takes a step further in year two.
It definitely do, man. It definitely allows us to grow together. You know what I'm saying? Last year coming in, it was both of our really first time getting our feet wet in the trenches. So I feel like having that year under our belts together and just our whole entire wide receiver core, having that year under our belts and just being able to grow so we know where we're going to be at on this play. We know how we're going to run this route to get the ball, you know what I'm saying, up and out. I mean, it's just small things like that I feel like we really grew over in the last year or so.
I feel like, and obviously Coach Shula's taken over for Dow Loggins, but I feel like Loggins, man, he had some really good calls that got you in some good situations in big spots last
Yes,
year.
sir.
Early on, whatever the route combo was at Kentucky, where Sellers kind of rolled back against the grain, found you wide open. I know I've seen the diagram against Bama on the 4th down and long where it looked like a great call versus what was some type of cover two. What were some of your favorite moments maybe from last year? I mean, just outside looking in, those seemed like big moments. Were those kind of on your list of?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like anytime you score a touchdown at the level of football that we play at, it's a big moment. You know what I'm saying? So just living in the moments that we get to live in. You know what I'm saying? We're definitely blessed to be able to make those type of plays. The play call is perfect against whatever defense they were running. And I mean, when you butt naked, and we was. So we scored.
Did you know? Like, did you have an indication? All right, I think we're in a good call that this is coming to me, or is it more just like, all right, I'm running my route, and then at some point along the way, you're like, oh, this is about to hit. At what point, kind of in your mind, are you like, all right, we got the right call on here?
I really feel like we all run our route to each other. You know what I'm saying? If I pull somebody else is gonna be open. If they run their route full speed, then I might pop open. So it's really just about, man, I'm gonna run my route for my brother to get him open first. Cause you know what I'm saying? If I run my route full speed, then it's gonna threaten the DB. He gonna have to think about who he want to take. You know what I'm saying? And we all run our routes like that. You never know who could pop open. So the fact that I was open, man, it really gives props. So I think it was Nick Harbor when we was at Alabama. He ran a post full speed, you know what I'm saying, took the defense out of there, took the safety, pulled him, and then we was just wide open on the back end. So, I mean, it's really just a team effort. At the end of the day, we all got to run our routes for each other.
Speaking of those guys, Mazio, obviously there's a lot of talk about the true freshmen coming in, rightfully so, very talented group. But also I feel like the guys that are returning alongside you, whether it's Nick Harbert, Jared Brown, Vandrivius Jacobs, a little bit of time I've been in practice, it looks like y'all's entire group has kind of taken another step forward. Can you kind of brag on your teammates there a little bit, the guys that also are back, and maybe are the expectations kind of moving up in terms of what you think that group can do?
Oh, yeah, for sure. I mean, as a wide receiver core, we definitely take a heart that whatever happens on the field, we try to make it our job. You know what I'm saying? If the running back get over 5 to 7 yards, it's because we did our job on the back end. You know what I'm saying? If we get an explosive play over 15, 20 yards, it's because we ran our routes with each other. We got each other open. So, I mean, it's like everything that happens within the offense, we try to make it about ourselves. That way, if we do the right thing, then it's going to show up on that field. And I get a part of my teammates, Coach Perry. I mean, the way we push each other in that meeting room and the way that we hold each other accountable for the things that we do, I mean, it's second to none. And I just love our group. You know what I'm saying? We do a lot of things for each other, and it's ourselves.
All right, y'all. We're hanging out here with Mazio Bennett. We got to take a quick break. We'll be right back. You're listening to the Gamecock Club Hour on the game. All right, guys, welcome back in. Hanging out here, South Carolina wide receiver Maceo Bennett, rising sophomore. Talking a little ball. We're going to talk a little off the field too here, Maceo. We always ask the guys, all right, if you're not playing football, you're not working out, your time. What are you kind of doing just to kind of get your mind off the field a little bit? Any hobbies that take up your time?
Sure, man. I love my dog. My dog is probably the person I spend the most time with outside of football. So if it's walking him, playing around with him, I live right here by the river, so we walk along the river all the time. You know what I'm saying? Just to get a little walk in, clear my mind, and allow him to get some exercise. In. So that's probably what I spend most of my time doing outside of football. Messing around with both.
Both? That's
Yeah.
how long do you have both?
I got him since March of last year, so I got him probably about 3 months. Since I picked him up.
A little bit different question for you, man, but how much has having a dog, I know you're highly competitive on the field, man. We both know that. How much is having a dog just to go home to? And obviously, he's going to love you every single day you walk in the door.
I love that. I love that, man. I love him. You know, he's right here in my face right now. So, I mean, having him to come home to somebody that don't care what happened at the facility, don't care what type of practice, what type of game, he just excited to see you, you know what I'm saying? He just has that unconditional love for what he thinks of as his dad, and I love that for him, and I love him, man. He's on my toes, man. So he's just a great addition to my life. I love it.
Obviously, man, pets become, and I know just being around your family a little bit, bigger picture family is very important to you as well. What has just having your parents and your sister and everybody in your life support you the way they do, how much has that kind of driven you and helped you to this point in your career?
I mean, man, it's awesome, you know what I'm saying? Having both of my parents in my life, you know what I'm saying? Learning what it looks like, how to treat a woman, you know what I'm saying? Having my sister in my life to really just grow with, you know what I'm saying? But growing up, me and my sister always used to argue. We used to argue every day, but it really just shows how much we love each other. You know what I'm saying? I love her, and I always want what's best for her. You know what I'm saying? So having that protective mindset over my sister just makes me feel like, man, every day I go out here, I gotta go hard for my family. You know what I'm saying? I gotta go hard. I gotta feed it. You know what I'm saying? That's my mindset because the sacrifices that my family made to get me to where I am today. That's all the motivation that I needed to go out there and just put on for sure.
For sure, man. So speaking of feeding, we also like to talk a little food here, man. What's Maceo Bennett putting on the plate? I'm not talking about like when you have to, what Yimmy's telling you to eat.
Yeah.
You can have anything you want. What's going on that plate?
Shoot, whatever I make. Hey, I can't lie. I've been in this cooking mode, man. I've been in that kitchen. I love to cook, man. That's something that I feel like I've grown into being down here. I just love to cook. I love to make good food with my teammate Dylan. No, Dylan, come over here and eat, man. He said my macaroni the best macaroni he had.
Okay.
Yeah, right. So, I mean, that's one thing. I love to cook. Whatever I make, I just feel like it's made the way I like it to taste, so it's good.
Did you cook before you got to Carolina, or that's something you kind of picked up on since you arrived?
I feel like I was always around the kitchen growing up. You know, my mom and my aunt, man, they really took care of that for real. So I know what good food tastes like, and it's just when I got my own kitchen and my own crib, they not here as like they used to. So I was like, man, I gotta take it for myself. And I love cooking, though. I love cooking for real.
All right, staying a little bit more off the field before we go back on to close this thing out. What other sports really kind of caught your attention growing up and to tie it all together? How much did you like this winter workout program, being able to, I know you are playing wiffle ball against each other, basketball. I think y'all even got to play dodgeball with Coach Beamer out there, which was like fun. So what other sports kind of grab your attention other than football?
Oh, definitely basketball, man. I grew up, man, wanting to be a hooper. So I realized there was people playing the same position as me that was 6'5". So I was like, nah, man, that's probably not my future. So growing up, I definitely was into basketball a lot. When we had that tournament, man, I was out there going hard, but that's definitely something that I like, man. The way they allow our team to stay together in the off season, doing stuff like that, playing dodgeball, basketball, football, whatever it may be. We have a team full of competitors. Whatever we do, we gonna make it fun just because of the type of personalities that we have in the team, competitiveness, spirit, all this stuff. It all comes
much have you followed? Obviously, South Carolina women are second to none. How much have you followed the basketball program? Just obviously, we're reporting the Final Four. Um, how cool has it been just to watch and follow that program with your classmates being on that national stage?
I mean, it's been awesome. You know what I'm saying? I keep up with every game. I watch every game. I'm not gonna lie. I watch every game. Even in they were in my hometown in Greenville. I was at every game. Every game that they had, I was there watching. It's awesome to see that my classmates, the people that I go to school with, you know what I'm saying, competing at the level that they compete at, bouncing back from whatever they had to go through to get there, they got there, you know what I'm saying? I was them. They never gave up. They never stopped fighting. That's something that I would hope bleeds over to us as football.
For sure. Final couple things here, Mazio. The rest of the spring ball, anything other than just development, overall development, anything in particular that you feel like you've kind of gone in on and that you're focused on as we start kind of leading out of spring ball into the offseason?
Yeah, just being a leader for those guys, giving them a good example to look at. You know what I'm saying? We go with the first group, just showing them how to do the thing right, the right way. You don't want to go up there and be a bad example. So just continue to lead those guys the right way, giving them answering their questions. You know, coming in as a young guy, you have a lot of questions from high school. I just love being that guy that they can come to. I'm still young too, but I've been through it how they want to go through it. Like, they wanna go on the field and be on the field early as they should. You know what I'm saying? So just having the answer to those questions that they may have, I love that.
And final question, man. I know the countdown is on to opening this thing up at Mercedes-Benz Stadium, nationally televised, neutral site matchup with Tech. What's your personal excitement level like as we look ahead to kicking off what will be year two for you and a big year for the team?
Oh man, I can't wait, man. I just feel like it's a lot of talk going on, man. We don't listen to that, and I'm just excited to be put on the field and put on the TV what we've been doing since last year. You know what I'm saying? What people have doubted us on, I'm ready to just show them. You know what I'm saying? It ain't too much talking to be said. It ain't too much rah rah to be said. It's just going out there and showing people what they want to see and what we're about as a team, as a unit, as a wide receiver unit this year. I'm ready to show.
Thank you, man. Like I said off top, we appreciate the time. It's been fun catching up with you, man. I gotta tell you, I'm happy for you, man. Like I said off top, I've seen how hard you work for this. I know it's been a dream for you since I first met you. So it's awesome to see you living that out, man. And we wish you luck. Let's do this again sometime, okay?
Yes, sir, man. Anytime, man. I appreciate you.
All right, that's Mazio Bennett, South Carolina receiver. I'm Wes Mitchell. This has been the Gamecock Club Hour on the game, and of course brought to you by our friends at Grand and Heating. All right, welcome back to the game. It's Chris Clark hanging out here with a Gamecock football freshman. Excited to have Anthony Addison in here with us. So, Anthony, first of all, man, thanks for taking time out this spring as you are busy with school, with football, busy with all that stuff. Thanks for taking time out. How's everything
Everything's going good so far. Playing.
Good, good.
South Carolina it's been good so far.
Yeah, man. I know you were all about it in high school for sure. It was kind of cool to watch you be an advocate for the program on social media. I mean, you're from, I don't want to say right down the road, but pretty close in Sumter, right? So long time commitment. So good stuff there. But let's go back there, right, to high school. First of all, were you obviously you came out of Sumter High? Are you born and raised South Carolina, or did you move around any growing up? Okay, nice. So born and raised. Were you always like you came up playing football? Did you always have eyes on, hey, I'd love to go to the University of South Carolina? Was that kind of a dream for you, or did that come later? Like describe that for me.
It came later. Like once I got older and started watching more and saw myself like that's kind of I wanted to.
You are a really athletic guy, right? Like that was your game, playing for Sumter, pass rushing off the edge. Was that always your position, or is that something you grew into? Because I mean, play, I can almost see like, and Anthony looks like maybe he played offense back in the day, like growing up. Like, what was your background there?
Like when I was younger, I always played with good running back. When I was younger, I played at Tennessee with Coach Doc. He always had me in the back, like in the back. I don't know. We always had two backs. I was one of them, and I always fought for him. And so this is where I gained my experience. I mean, I played tight end, but I always played defense. So I didn't grow it. I didn't grow that.
Yeah. You, I mean, watching you play, I've seen you play. Like I remember seeing you at Carolina's camp. I think before you even had an offer from South Carolina, you were working out with Coach Lucas at a summer camp in June. And I mean, you're a guy that plays like with some fire, right? Some emotion. That seems to really come out when you play.
My mom, she always the reason why I was my mom, she always came to South Carolina when I was younger. Those were the close.
Yeah.
So that's really how I got that relationship with Coach Lucas on my own, just going up into the camp working out. The first thing was if we gonna go to camp to get college exposure, why not just go to the college?
Yeah. Go straight to the source. That totally makes sense. Yeah. So you end up getting an offer from South Carolina, and we were talking about Coach Lucas. So you were able to, build a relationship with him. You were able to, work out with him before you got the offer, and then of course build that relationship after you got the offer. Now that you have had some time to get to know him as just your coach, like he's not recruiting you anymore, like he's just your coach. How is that relationship been, and what all have you been learning from him, in your first couple months here, few months?
I learned a lot from Coach so far. Like overall, I feel like he's a good coach. Like his big thing so far, he really just want us to perform at our best at all times. He wants us to know what's going on so that we can pass. He really just wants us to play football, but in order for us to play football, we gotta know what's going on. Like we gotta know the play. Like, we look to the sideline and they doing the signal, we gotta know what's going on. So I can just know it. And then when we make plays, he's the first one that comes celebrate. So that's another thing that I like about Coach. Like, we make plays, he turned us plays. And
Yeah.
not show emotion for making plays. He embraced it and he good about making plays.
And coach, you mentioned your coach is Mark Barnes. Like he's coached a lot of guys who gone on to success in college, onto the NFL. So he obviously runs a great program. But, when you're stepping into that giant weight room, like a college program and a college nutrition program, like, was that a pretty big adjustment for you, or how do you feel about that?
It was a big adjustment. I just had to embrace, like, I can't go to nutrition. I just wanted to embrace it. I knew it better. Honestly, it was like now, like today's practice, I feel great that entire time just listening off what eating told me, eating that breakfast and drinking that stuff. That just got me right there out of the whole practice. So just embracing what eating and it's working.
Hanging out with Anthony Addison from Gamecock football. Anthony, one of the freshmen from last year's team, and I know you played. You were not on the team last year, but paid close attention, I'm sure, was Dylan Stewart. And so, you're watching him on TV last year, watching him, Kyle Kennard, the rest of the guys. This year, you're in the same room with him, watching him in practice every day. What have you learned from watching, a big time guy like Dylan Stewart, who's been making a lot of plays in college already?
Honestly, it's just been fun. Just a great teammate and a great guy to be around. And I'm just playing beside him and practicing with him. He really just showing me how to practice. What to do, what not to do. If I got a question, I know I can ask him.
Anthony, when you are not on the field, in the classroom, in the weight room, you're just trying to, just hang out, and have a little bit of downtime. What are some of the things that you like to do? You got any hobbies or anything away from football?
Mostly, to be honest, I'm really just there with my teammates most of the time. Like, we either go out and try to find things to do, either talk about football, playing something, doing something. Honestly, doing something. Like before I got on here with you, I was out with them.
Right.
They just said, "Look, I can break off in the room." We really just been riding overall. Coach trying to know what we playing with each other. We got to go to war with each other and the rest of it. So we just trying to.
Well, it does seem like that, you guys in that freshman class, especially, you get to know each other some during the recruiting process. It's easier to do that, like social media and everything, and of course some in-state guys. But it seems like y'all have built, a pretty good bond so far, right?
Yeah, it's a pretty good bond, I guess.
What how do you feel about the culture, that Coach Beamer has around the program? It's something he talks about a lot. It seems like there's a lot of like team building stuff in the off season, but what have you observed since you've been here in the few months you've been here on that front?
Definitely a culture of South Carolina. Like it's a culture. Like I played in coaching before. So like it's like feeling, when you playing, you feel like you're playing something more than like yourself. Like you actually playing to win for everybody on the team type. And that's what's going on here. Cause that's how they felt last year. They were playing for DC. They wanted them to go off. And you feel me? That didn't happen. So that's what we trying to do this year because they couldn't do it last year. And we got the tools to do it this year. So we feel like we have to do it. And if we don't do it, then it's like we fail. And we don't want to fail.
Good stuff, man. All right, so that's Anthony Addison. Anthony, appreciate you taking time out of your busy schedule to make time for us today here on the game, man. And wishing you all the best, wishing you a happy, healthy rest of the spring. We'll catch up soon, man. Thanks for coming on with us.
All right, thank you.
All right, that's Anthony Addison from Gamecock Football. You're listening to The Game. We'll be right back on the other side.
That was Chris's conversation with Anthony Addison. Of course, Wes talking to Lenore Sellers and Mazio Bennett a little bit earlier on in the hour. And we are out here once again at Pro Swing in Forest Acres, hanging out for round one of the Masters out there in Augusta. Things gotten rolling a little bit earlier on this morning. We'll talk more about that and what you can do here at Pro Swing a little bit more as we get into the 11 o'clock hour with the Gamecock Central Takeover Hour presented by Firehouse Subs. As Wes and Chris just came over here from another viewing window for spring practice, and we'll dive into some of that to start off the next hour as well. It is the Gamecock Club Hour presented by Krantz Cooling and Heating here on your Thursday on the Game.
All right, guys, we are out here at Pro Swing in Forest Acres, and it's the same folks that bring integrated media to you. We got media all over the place here in Pro Swing, 98-inch TV behind my head, flat screen TVs everywhere, the best in technology, and they can help you out at your home or your business as well. Specifically, if you're planning on remodeling the inside of your home soon, if you want to upgrade your backyard with a patio, fire pit, or pool, if you're moving to a new home or building a home, don't forget to add integrated media to your list of to-do items. They can install internet lines, in-ceiling speakers, kitchen remodels, installing outdoor speakers and a waterproof TV around your new backyard setup, and so much more. They can do it for you. You might not need some of the old outdated technology. You might need to get into 2025's technology. Michael, Nathan, and their team can do it for you. IntegratedMediaInc.com, or give them a call today, 803-948-8327. That's Integrated Media.
$11 o'clock. Welcome back in. Gamecock Central Takeover Hour presented by Firehouse Subs. Tyler West Chris along with you again out at Pro Swing here in Forest Acres for day number 2, day number 1 officially of the Masters Tournament getting rolling. The featured groups rolling out as the morning and the day goes along. And we're on our way to see who's going to be crowned champion come Sunday afternoon. By the way, the weather looking great over the next couple days. It's one thing, like the Masters is obviously fun to watch, but it's even better when you have pristine conditions and the sunshine glows on that amazing green grass off the water and everything like that. And it looks like we're in for a fun weekend.
Yeah, for sure. Fun weekend here at Pro Swing if you can't make the Masters.
That's right.
And
actually, coming to Pro Swing could actually help you go to the Masters.
True. We're out here now. Awesome facility, as some of you already know. But yeah, I mean, the Masters obviously is very dependent on the weather cooperating. And so far, it appears we're in a good place.
Yeah, looks pretty good. So again, you'll be following that as the weekend goes along. The season going to have the green jacket come Sunday. You guys coming over from the football facility a little while ago got to see another window of spring practice. We have a little over a week to go before the spring game coming up next Friday. I did ask Chris. Nothing was completely off limits today after what happened at the presser the other day. Nothing was different or more guarded off than it has been.
No, I mean, I always tell people, like, my friend, hey, how do they look? How we look? What's going on out there? I'm like, guys, we ain't watching scrimmages or 11 on 11 and stuff like that. Mostly stretch, some drill work. We got to see a little pursuit drill where it's basically running backs catching a swing pass, and linebackers are just kind of tagging them off, not even tackling them, but having to pursue them. And I think for the most part, you're looking at practices to, all right, first of all, who's out here? Is there anybody missing? Is there anybody hurt? Is there anybody in a blue jersey? Blue jersey basically says, hey, you can practice, but be easy on this guy. It's non-contact for him. And then who looks the part physically? I think who runs well. Special teams is obviously a big part of the spring this year in terms of competition, because as we know, they've got competition at every single specialist spot. So maybe you pick up something here or there on that. But for the most part, it's just getting out there on the grass and kind of seeing what's going on, but without really seeing a ton in terms of actual 11 on 11 football.
Yeah, you can kind of have some, maybe like bigger picture takeaways, or just kind of eyeballing guys, or maybe you see something that prompts, a storyline in your head. For me today, like there were some special teams drills. So watching them go through that, they do that. Joe DiCamillo's special teams coach, he probably gets more practice time than probably, I would dare say, any special teams coach in the country. And so if you're out at practice at any particular time, the Lattermen were out there the other day during the scrimmage. They probably saw a lot of special teams work. If you're out there at the beginning, get access at the beginning like we do with the portions of practice that are open, you're going to see some special teams work. And maybe you see some things that are, noteworthy, but maybe you just see something that prompts in your mind, hey, Joe D has to replace a lot of guys from last year's roster, not just, kicker, snapper, holder, punter, as we've already outlined, but like Wes, you've talked about Dale Von Campbell. You would see him frequently last year flying down the field in a straight line on punts, as a gunner in punt coverage. That's a guy you're going to miss. King Dominion Ford, a former walk-on, he played, the second most special team snaps on the team last year. He won't be here. Really reliable guy for you. Juju McDowell, played a bunch of special team snaps and was a guy who was a returner for you. It's not just the guys who are snapping and kicking and punting the football and holding it. It's your guys out there on the coverage units and guys out there blocking. So a lot to figure out on that side of the ball. And although we didn't see, who's working in these particular spots, there's still a lot to figure out, as I just said. But it just kind of prompts maybe some of those things in your mind. And then just eyeballing guys, getting a better look at some of the freshmen, some of the transfers, seeing how they move around and trying to take away what you can from that.
Speaking of moving around, you guys did note on the thread you guys have on the Insiders Forum that Michael Smith was out there, obviously not participating in spring practice, but by all accounts, looking good, looking healthy, and again, maybe more precautionary than anything else that he's sending out spring. And he's obviously, as we talked about the other day, going to be a big factor in this tight end group this year.
Yeah, big, physical, athletic kid. I don't think you're worried about the tight end group at all. You've got a nice mix And in a lot of ways, I think it could be similar to last year's group. Of course, you lose Joshua Simon. Of course, he was a really good player for you. But, I mean, I like these guys as well. And I think you look at the athleticism in the room, the size in the room, actually the experience in the room as well. And it's going to be a nice mix again of guys they can kind of use, somewhat situationally, I think, in terms of how exactly they put guys on the field in certain downs, distances, situations, and matchups and stuff like that. But to lose a guy like Simon and still just feel really good about that position, I think they're really in a good place just in terms of setting themselves up for that spot, certainly compared to maybe a couple other positions on the team.
Yeah, and I'll bring up a guy you talked about him yesterday, but Jordan Dingle, I think has gotten kind of lost in the shuffle in some people's minds. I think there's going to be a lot of if going to be really good competition in that room. So if we ultimately get to preseason, or even for fans who are in the stands at the spring game next Friday, they might go, "Who's 5 on offense?" That type of thing. Who's that guy? And they're going to have to consult their roster on GamecockCentral.com, of course. And Jordan Dingle, he came from Kentucky. What's the deal with this guy? But a guy who's plenty experienced, plenty capable, I think, too, and looks the part. When he was at Kentucky, and you brought this up, I think yesterday, Wes, if you go look at the stats, if you're a stats watcher, you may go, "Oh, okay, he hasn't done a lot. Maybe this guy's more of a blocking tight end, doesn't really catch the football. Maybe he can't catch the football." But I think it was 2022. Wes had a really nice season when Will Levis was there. He is a capable pass catcher, but what we heard when South Carolina started pursuing him in the transfer portal was he was certainly a guy that the staff felt like was going to be a quality blocker. So I think one question is, last year we saw Jatavius Shivers go in there and play kind of a 6 offensive lineman, extra tight end role. They've got that in their back pocket for this year, but do we see Jordan Dingle kind of play that role as well? Not as like a 6 offensive lineman, totally different body type, but it seems like they really like him as a blocker, but he's also someone that can catch the ball. So, we're thinking of Smith when he gets back, Brady Hunt. I don't think we can forget about Dingle, someone that the staff seems to like a good bit.
Well, they play. I mean, it was essentially, I looked at them as co-starters last year
Yeah.
with 3 different guys, and
Right.
I think you could see them maybe take a similar approach this year and be just fine. And then I think you throw Maurice Brown II in there too. I mean, he played some last year. Maybe his playing time goes up this year. I'm kind of over talking about him as just he gets labeled, this guy came in as a walk-on, but he's a really good football player, physical guy, can make plays with the ball in his hands too. Apparently had a big play in the scrimmage. And, I just like that room overall.
Yeah, and of course, I mean, Josh Simon ended up being Lenore Seller's safety net in a lot of ways last year, was the team's, leading receiver, and he's obviously moved on now. And the hope is that you have the development in the wide receiver room that you're hoping for, where those guys step up and kind of become those more consistent targets. But it's always good, especially in the short areas of the field, to have one of those tight ends that you can always count on. And again, we saw good things out of Michael Smith a year ago, especially early on in the season, and when Brady Hunt was healthy, some things there as well. And again, just kind of interested to see how it shakes out in terms of snaps and in terms of targets as well once we get into the season.
Yeah, and I think, again, you could see it be similar, but also it's going to depend on who's playing well. I think Mike Smith could make a big jump just in terms of production as a receiver. He was out there a lot all season long. Ball didn't necessarily come his way a ton. We saw a big catch against Missouri that ended up being, massive. And so I think he's a guy just talent-wise, big body, height, ball skills, can run. I mean, even as someone who's not participating out there right now, just looks fantastic physically as someone who can be a mismatch for you. So, I think fans can be excited about that group.
Yeah, different skill sets. I mean, Michael Smith is your most dynamic guy, and so if you're looking for, I don't know. Everybody always says, "How are you going to replace such and such?" And oftentimes guys you can't really replace because they have maybe a total package of things, and you're going to have one player be a little bit better in one area, maybe not bring as much in one area. I mean, Josh Simon was, a guy who could block, who could obviously catch the ball, was really tough after the catch, and super experienced. I mean, when you look at just how long he was in the college game, he played a ton at Western Kentucky before he even came to South Carolina and played a lot. So, Michael Smith won't be a fifth-year senior. He'll still be a relatively inexperienced player, but I do think he has the potential to be, maybe one of the most dynamic guys we've seen at tight end in a while. Kind of true tight end size, but wide receiver like skills. So I think he's got a chance to be a pretty big part of the offense. But, Dingle, Hunt, they're going to be right in that mix too.
We'll loop back around to some of the stuff that Coach Beamer talked about the other day that we didn't have a chance to get to yesterday, including what he did have to say about special teams and their competition as spring football rolls along. That's coming up next. It's the Gamecock Central Takeover Hour presented by Firehouse Subs, live out at Pro Swing here in Forest Acres. 107.5 The Game, hanging out all the way until 6 o'clock once again, celebrating the start of the Masters for 2025 here in the Game. And welcome back in. Gamecock Central Takeover Hour presented by Firehouse Subs. Tyler West and Chris hanging out with you here at Pro Swing in Forest Acres. Hole 107.5, the game crew again out here until 6 o'clock today as we celebrate the first round of the Masters. We got rolling a couple of hours ago. Speaking of things just getting started, Minor League Baseball, their season just getting underway a couple days ago. The Fireflies taking on the River Dogs on this weekend. Have 2 family 4-packs tickets right now for callers number 4 and 5 at 803-404-6100. Captain Dave excitedly standing by to take your calls to give these tickets away. Again, callers 4 and 5 right now at 803-404-6100 for a 4-pack to go see the Fireflies take on the River Dogs tomorrow night over at Segra Park. Dave, before you grab those phone calls, let's hear from Coach Beamer the other day talking about the pressure that special teams is under through spring practice this year.
Yeah, I thought that was one of the positive things from Saturday was the way that we punted and kicked the ball. We really punted the ball well. Mason Love, William Joyce, those guys did a nice job, and then kicking field goals. Mason and Peyton Argent and Joyce, all 3 of those guys, I thought did some really good things. We tried to create even more, kicking situations and maybe in previous scrimmages just to get those guys work from a field goal standpoint, not just kicking, but snapping and holding, because all that's going to be new for us next year. Not new for us, but it'll be someone new doing it. And the more we can do it in the stadium when it's live and in front of, or you're in Williams-Brice and next Friday night in front of a lot of people, we can't get enough of those. But I was pleased with them. I thought we did some good things on special teams. I mean, a guy, it's all about, culture of your team is displayed with special teams. And DQ Smith blocked a field goal. And here's a guy that's about to be a 4-year starter, and he's coming hard off the edge to lay his body out to block a field goal as well. So that was good to see. I didn't like getting it blocked, but it was good to see the effort to block it. And then the way that we kicked, I was, very pleased. So a lot of position battles going on there. And I know everybody looks at offense and defense, but there's a lot of battles. Who's going to be the starting right guard on the punt team, and who's going to be on the front line of kickoff return, and who's going to be on our kickoff coverage team running downfield. And there's some really cool competition going on out there in practice and scrimmages, and that includes the specialist group as well.
As we've talked about a lot here at South Carolina, you've gotten spoiled over the years, right? With really consistent place kicking. The past couple of years, you've obviously had a very good punter in Kai Kroger, who can obviously punt the ball a mile and also, help you with your fakes when needed as well. And now you're completely resetting everything. You also lose Hunter Rogers, a very valuable long snapper as well. And special teams is one of those things that, unfortunately, a guy can make a million kicks in practice. A guy can punt the ball incredibly well in scrimmages or whatever it may be. But until you see them go out there and do it on the field during a game in the fall, you're not going to have a lot of comfort around it. So again, it's going to be a lot of wait and see, but you are replacing, again, all 3 of your specialists. You mentioned all those other guys, gunners and valuable places on special teams that we don't talk about a lot. It's almost like a complete reset for that group this year.
Yeah, I mean, you can go beyond all that. So kicker, punter, snapper, holder, kickoff returner, punt returner, and then the gunners, and then the other stuff we don't even think about, like he said, who's playing the guard spots on your punt coverage team, just all the different spots. And I think it's fascinating too. For one, I feel like we haven't even really mentioned the guys by name a ton, in terms of, like, we've talked about Mason Love, and Love has received some attention from Beamer and from Joe D in terms of doing a good job. But you actually, if you go through the bios, basically all the guys are listed as competing at punter and kicker, which I think is kind of rare. So you have Mason Love, who really came in as more of a punter, but got in a little bit on the kicker battle last year. He's kind of in there. William Joyce, Peyton Argent, who I feel like we haven't heard of, talked about much. They're all 3, at least in a general sense, competing at both of those spots. And then, at times a guy will kick with one of them holding, and then they'll just swap places and go hold. And then you have Max Kelly coming in, who's a summer enrollee, who was number 3 place kicker in his class. And, Joe D mentioned he'll be in the mix as well. So I think that's something. Punter, it really feels like, I know they're going to keep competing. I'd be shocked if Love does not end up winning the punter job, just when you look at the high school pedigree and what you've heard about him so far. I think place kicker a little bit more up in the air, and who wins the kicker job will kind of maybe even directly affect who the holder is, because again, there's some kind of guys going back and forth there. And then long snapper again up for grabs. I'll be fascinated to see what happens at punt returner and kick returner as well. Jalen Kilgore, who was their punt safe returner last year, received some high praise from Joe D when he spoke earlier this week. So you would assume that means Kilgore is maybe the front runner at punt returner, but I feel like we don't really know exactly who would fall in that category at kickoff returner.
Yeah, I mean, so many storylines here. And, when you think about Max Kelly coming in, it would be great, first of all, if you had him this spring. But like you said, Wes, highly rated kicker. I've been kind of struck by how little, this has been talked about. Because we know with Shane Beamer, special teams has been a legitimate third phase of the game, and they've made some game-changing plays on special teams and been really, really good there, for the most part throughout his tenure. And it just has flown under the radar a little bit. You also have the fact that, during last season, 2024 season, I mean, place kicking was talked about a lot. Yet you turn that over this year, and I don't know if there's just an assumption that somebody's waiting in the wings to take that over or what. Hasn't been talked about as much. It figures, just like it did last year. We kind of thought going into the season, hey, there are going to be some games that might come down, for better or worse, to a kick. How's that going to play out? And it did. And you got to figure, with South Carolina's schedule, the competition, you might have the same deal this year. So Max Kelly's going to come in. He's going to add to this mix. He's going to add competition. And, Jody talked about it the other day. He's a bigger, powerful kid. And I thought it was interesting. He pointed out he's advanced technically, for his age. All those things sound great. But to go back to what you said, Tyler, you got to get into practice at the college level, the SEC level, and apply that. But then even beyond practice, how does a first-year guy perform in a game? Really, how do any of these guys – have any of these guys had a competitive, meaningful kick in a game here? No. And so you never truly know. I always go back to, the battle in 2022 between Alex Herrera, who was the kicker last year, and Mitch Jeter, who ended up being South Carolina's starter for multiple seasons. That was a very tight battle all the way up until game one. And they kind of – is a little bit of hyperbolic. They kind of coin flipped it, went with Mitch Jeter, and then he was, perfect at one season, and it was close, right? So you gotta make your best judgment and then go with it in a game, and so it'll be fascinating to see how it plays out. I don't think we get an answer, even at punter where Love does seem to be ahead. We probably don't get an answer this spring. At any of those?
Are you surprised we didn't see any other kickers try anything last year? Because Herrera had his ups and downs and struggled in some of those big kicks, and you had the guys behind him, Joyce Argent, Mason Love, obviously trying at kicker as well. Are we surprised none of those guys got any run at kicker at all last season, given the fact that Herrera did have his struggles?
I wouldn't say surprised. What that probably tells me is maybe Herrera was just the clear best in practice. Now, there was some talk early on. I remember preseason camp, they were talking about Mason Love kind of getting a little bit more in the mix at that kicker competition. And, there were some signs early on that this was a question. Now, I think at that position, it's so mental. And that's part of the reason why, not that it's not mental at other spots, but kicker, it certainly is. That's why you just don't know until a guy gets in the games. And, I think not showing confidence in your kicker can have other ramifications as well if you have to go back to them. So I think it's a little bit like people see a quarterback too. Everybody except Steve Spurrier, they're very hesitant to yank a quarterback because you don't want to kind of show that you don't have the utmost confidence in a guy. So does that maybe apply to kickers too? I don't know. And I think they did have, as the season went on, they had pretty good confidence in Herrera. I think he was their best option there. He did make a big kick. Everybody forgets he makes that huge kick against Clemson. If he didn't make that, it completely changes the dynamic of the end of that game. So, was not the season that you saw from Mitch Jeter the prior 2 years, but was it completely just a listless performance with no positive outcomes whatsoever? No. So I think people maybe need to at least give Herrera a little more credit than they do.
Yeah, it's okay to point out the good, the bad, the positives, the negatives. I think it's gotten some people took it way too far and acted like every time Herrera came up to do anything, there's no chance of it going in. And you just look at the numbers and the situations, that just wasn't true, right? I mean, he's
technically more accurate than Mitch Jeter at Notre Dame.
Well,
technically.
Well, I mean, the guy who won the Groza Award last year from Louisiana, it's not Louisiana Lafayette, just Louisiana.
It's just
now.
Louisiana now.
He missed an extra point last year. He was 2 for 5 from 50 yards plus. Now, the difference is why he was so good, he did not miss a kick from 20 to 49, right?
Yeah.
And so I think that's maybe the one, some of the big kicks from 40 to 49, Herrera was 7 of 11. He did miss one kick in that 30 to 39 range, but if it's in the Ole Miss games, inconsequential. You lost that game by 24 points.
Sure.
That kick made no difference. So he did make some big kicks. Did he miss some? Yeah, sure. Would you like to be more consistent? Sure. I think people just took it. It went a little bit too far during the season, but it is an important spot. So are the others. So is, like you said, Wes, and harkening back to what Beamer said, so is the right guard in your punt unit. You got a lot to figure out there. And given that it's been such a big difference maker for them, you want to find some answers there.
Of course, that's one of many things we're going to be following as the entire offseason rolls along. And as we're getting into the offseason more and more, we're going to see a lot of lists pop up. And Lenore Sellers at quarterback is going to be on a lot of those lists, including the one from Ari Wasserman and Andy Staples of On3. What do they have to say about Lenore Sellers and where he stands compared to all quarterbacks in college football? Coming up next, it is the Gamecock Central Takeover Hour presented by Firehouse Subs live at Pro Swing here at Forest Acres, going until noon on the game.
All right, guys, you know what? This show brought to you by our friends over at Firehouse Subs. As always, you can get your lunch from our friends at Firehouse by heading to firehousesubs.com or hitting the Firehouse Subs app. Hit the Rapid Rescue to go every single time you order. You're going to get points. You can trade those points in after the fact for free food. Want to try something new? Try the Hot Ones Zesty Garlic Hook and Ladder or the new Hot Ones Spicy Dill Hook and Ladder, depending on how much heat you like. If you just like something that's got that little mild heat, but still just adds a little something to it, try the Zesty Garlic Hook and Ladder. Had one the other day for lunch. Fantastic. Or if you want something that they're saying is 10 on the heat scale, try the Spicy Dill Hook and Ladder with that dill pickle just marinated and soaked in the Carolina Reaper sauce. So either way, they got something for you at firehousesubs.com. And of course, as always, they got your favorites, whether that is Tyler's favorite, turkey bacon ranch. I don't even know what Chris's favorite is right now. He rotates it so much. Or mine, brisket, add bacon. You can't go wrong at Firehouse. Hit them up right now, firehousesubs.com or Firehouse Subs app.
Back in Gamecock Central Takeover Hour presented by Firehouse Subs. Tyler West and Chris hanging out with you here at Pro Swing on Forest Drive out in Forest Acres. Celebrating the start of the Masters tournament as things are off and rolling with groups going off all morning long and all afternoon long as well as round one gets underway. And by the way, if you come out to Pro Swing this week at 4708 Forest Drive or give them a call at 803-528-1817, you can find out how you could win tickets to go to the final round of the Masters coming up on Sunday, when it will be announced with Jay and Elijah on the post-game show coming up tomorrow afternoon at 5:30. So again, you can come out to Pro Swing or give them a call at 803-528-1817 and find out how you could win those tickets and be there when somebody's putting on a gold jacket on Saturday afternoon, or excuse me, Sunday afternoon. Get back to the football conversation. Again, we're in the offseason now. A lot of lists going to be popping up, and with how good of a year Lenore Sellers had, particularly in those last 6 games last year, he's going to be on a lot of lists when it comes to quarterbacks this offseason. On threes, Ari Wasserman and Andy Staples each put out their own top 10 quarterbacks in college football list this week, and Lenore Sellers sits at number 2 behind DJ Lagway. We'll listen to Andy Staples give his take on how Lenore Sellers raises the ceiling for South Carolina this season.
Yeah, I'm very excited to see this because I think Lenore Sellers raises it's similar to the DJ Lagway conversation. Like Lenore Sellers, by merely existing, raises South Carolina's ceiling. He raises everyone else on the team. He makes them all better. I think DJ Lagway may have a little bit better supporting cast right now, and it's up to South Carolina's receiver group to prove me wrong on that. Like, yeah, I want Nick Harbor to become the Nick Harbor of the video game. I think we get that. We see even more from Lenore Sellers, because I think he was doing it a lot on his own last year is what it felt like. Now, they had a freshman receiver last year who was pretty good, Mazio Bennett. I think, he gets better. You get a little more out of him. I'm excited for what Lenore Sellers can be, and I hope he can stay healthy as well, because I feel like that they lose to Ole Miss, and it wasn't really close, but Lenore Sellers was hurt, and I think there was a lot to do with that too. So I'm really hopeful that we get fully healthy Lagway and Sellers seasons here. Because I think they could be so special.
Again, that's Andy Staples and Ari Wasserman of On 3 discussing their top 10 quarterback list. And obviously very high praise there for Lenore Sellers. And I think it's interesting that he's there behind Lagway, because I feel like these two guys are going to get compared to each other a lot this season, because they both kind of hit their stride back half of last season. Obviously, both of them picked up some big wins in the back half of last season as well, play a similar style at quarterback. Both obviously got nicked up with injuries as well. And Andy is right when comparing those two guys. Lagway has a little bit more returning around him. He's got his leading rusher back, most of his offensive line. Lenore Sellers doesn't necessarily have that. We're still trying to figure out the starting 5, and obviously you have Rocket Sanders moving on to the NFL. But both guys, obviously, as he said, raised the ceiling of their team, and there's no doubt about it. And Lenore Sellers obviously is a starting quarterback, and there's nobody in that quarterback room that can give you a better option of playing that position than Lenore Sellers by probably a wide mile. And again, he's going to be paramount to the success of this team this year.
Yeah, that's the beauty, especially in college ball. If you have a quarterback, you have a chance. And, Lenore is an elite playmaker, which I think for Carolina is something, you got to take advantage of your time window with him in a uniform. And, for whatever reason, Lagway and Lenore, like Tyler was saying, they're linked now. And, they're both young quarterbacks who were dynamic for their team last year, certainly down the stretch. And, you just kind of hate. Think about this, guys. If let's say Lenore has the year that he could have, let's say he goes pro after this coming season, he will have gone through his career. He will have never gone head to head with Lagway. He will never have gone head to head with Florida, Georgia, or Tennessee as a starting quarterback. And those are your traditional SEC East teams that you sort of set your standard if you're South Carolina on. Are you competing with those teams? Are you beating those teams? And so for what will be, in my opinion, one of South Carolina's most talented quarterbacks in school history by the time he leaves, maybe one of the most accomplished by the time he leaves, to not play any of those teams and not give us in this case, Lagway versus Sellers head to head, is to me one of the just huge drawbacks to our current way things are structured with the SEC and the bigger league and all those things. And it seems like I see more people are leaning towards Lagway a little bit over Sellers. They certainly did as well. And there's no disrespect to Sellers so Sellers was 2, right?
Yeah, he was 2 on both
Second
their lists.
in the country.
Yep. Of all quarterbacks, this is all everybody in college
Can't
football.
really say it's disrespectful.
So you can't really say it's disrespectful, but I don't know. Maybe that speaks to just the overall upside people see in Lagway. But man, there's a tremendous amount of upside when it comes to Lenore Sellers as well. I'd love to see them settle this thing on the field, but I don't think we're going to get that, or we might not get that.
In a hypothetical SEC championship game would be the most possible thing, or matching up down the road in the playoff at some point. But yeah,
is Florida back on the schedule in 2026 if Sellers were to be back? Does anybody know off the top of their head?
So based on the way it's structured, considering you just flipped home and away with who you played, I would imagine it'd be a fresh batch of teams, right? And we'd
I think, but
maybe have the 9th game by then.
Yeah, we haven't landed on a surefire. Here's what the schedule. Here's how we're doing scheduling.
Yeah,
like we've kind of got the stopgap for now that we're still in, and so they got to figure that out. Maybe have a 9th game,
because the idea is you're supposed to play everybody in a 4-year window.
Yeah,
that was the idea behind going away from divisions, but we'll see.
Well, and I do think, I agree with you, I think, with Lagway, there's so much upside, but there's also so much upside with Lenore Sellers, and it was mentioned in this story, the stats don't jump off the page, and his stats were 2,500 passing yards, 18 touchdowns, 7 picks. And Lagway, I realized he was not. See, that's the difference. He wasn't a full-time starter, but Lenore's missed some time.
Yep.
Lagway was 1,915 yards, 12 touchdowns, 9 picks. So those also don't jump off the page. So I think, look, whichever one you pick, whether you're 1, 2, if you're in the top 5, heck, if you're in the top 10, that's an honor. And that means you have a really good quarterback. You go up and down this list, if your team have any of these guys on the list, you feel pretty good, or even the honorable mention guys, you feel pretty good about it.
Yeah, and the only thing I hate more than narratives is the actual word narrative. I feel like it just gets thrown around way too often now. And but the narrative, I think, with a lot of people who don't watch Sellers on a week-to-week basis is, oh, he's just a runner. And I think, and not that Ari and Andy are saying that, because I don't think you'd have him number 2 in the country if he was just a runner. But there were literally people responding to one of the tweets about him being second, posting a QB draw play art from the video game. Chris and I were talking to a Clemson fan on location for our podcast the other day who basically, as a runner. And I mean, not that stats tell the entire story, but you're talking about a guy who in his first year as a starting quarterback was 3rd in the SEC in completion percentage. And so the other 2 guys were Quinn Ewers and Jackson Dart. So, I mean, the fact that what he did as a passer, to me, even as a first-year guy, speaks to what could that be in year 2? What could that be with a frankly better receiving core this year? I think we all believe that group could take another step forward. What does that look like statistically? What does that look like just eyeball-wise? But Lenoris throws a beautiful football. He can, quote, make all the throws, all the quarterback cliches. He can do it.
Yeah, he can. And, I mean, you've even seen some stuff come out. Some people, Wes, I could just envision it. If we've probably seen this, and I just kind of blotted it out of my mind. Well, yeah, his completion percentage is good, but it was all, check downs, just totally made up stuff.
Sure.
Straw man stuff. He can throw the ball down the field.
We have analytics to back this up now.
Right.
Pro Football Focus helps us out there.
That's right. And the thing is, and Andy Staples pointed this out in the clip you played earlier, Lenoris did this with not the supporting cast. He didn't have, no offense to the guys, he didn't have Texas's wide receiver room last year. He didn't have, an Ole Miss wide receiver room. They should be better this year when you factor in what we've heard about Harbor, Mazio, Jared Brown, the freshmen that are coming in. You feel like they could be able to take a step forward in the wide receiver room department, and that's only going to help Lenoris, I think.
What if Jared Brown catches that deep ball in game one right off the bat? Is the perception of Lenoris as a passer? I mean, it's one play in a long season,
Yeah,
but
totally.
is it different for what he did in that first game if you add 70 yards to his total and a deep ball that's dropped right in the bucket to everything else? Does it get his confidence going in that game too?
Yep. Maybe
Yeah.
so.
I mean, I remember like being in the like watching that. I'm like, what a ball, you
Yeah.
know?
Well,
He can throw it.
what he threw the 50-yarder to Harbor in the garbage time against Furman 2 years ago. Yeah. So
No, to Tashawn
Russell, that's right.
Yep.
So we know he's got an arm, and he's certainly put it on display many times. Can be talked about plenty in this offseason as it goes along. We'll come back and wrap things up for our portion of the day here at Pro Swing in Forest Acres, going until noon on the game. And welcome back in. Gamecock Central Takeover Hour presented by Firehouse Subs. Tyler West and Chris wrap things up for our portion before we hand it over to Terry Ford for the halftime show out here at Pro Swing in Forest Acres, celebrating the start of the Masters as round number 1's underway. Groups taking off as the morning and the afternoon rolls along, and then we're off and running to see who ends up taking home the championship come Sunday. Should be a fun weekend. The weather again looking really nice out there at Augusta National after the rain pushed through earlier on this week. So excited to see what goes down there. Also excited to see what happens with Gamecock baseball tonight. Another big test. They go on the road starting their series with Texas A&M. A pregame coverage starting at 7:45 for an 8 o'clock first pitch out there in College Station. Jake McCoy on the mound for game number 1. Matthew Becker turned to the starting lineup for game number 2. And good old TBA going to be starting things on Saturday with the possibility that could be Dylan Eskew, as he's listed as questionable and been working his way back after his bizarre injury in Arkansas a couple weeks ago.
Yeah, I know Maneri said that he had a bullpen session and went better than they even expected it to. So obviously the thing with those is how do you feel the next day? Do you bounce back? Is there any extra fatigue? And with him, I mean, it was weird enough in the first place that he just happened to get hit in the head, but then he hurt his oblique again from falling, getting hit in the head, and that became an entirely different issue, which for a pitcher, you're kind of the way you have to tweak your body when you throw is, you can't really be a pitcher and be successful, especially in this league, if you have a sore oblique. So would be good for them, obviously, to get him back. This is going to be another tough road trip. As we know, Texas A&M started to maybe find their stride a little bit after struggling, to say the least, to start the season. And I don't know, guys. We'll see. I really thought after the way they played this past Friday against another team that's kind of just scuffled for most of the year in Mississippi State, I thought it was a great opportunity for them to get a confidence-building series win. And obviously for 2 straight games last week, did not happen.
Well, 2-10 in conference, and if you start looking at the, and look, maybe some people are saying, why are you even talking about this, Chris? They're not going to make the postseason. It's certainly a tough road. There's no doubt about it when you're sitting at 2-10. But if you kind of even use last year, which was you were probably not comfortably in last year, 13-17. And so I'm not great at math. That means you got to go at 11-7 in conference the remainder of the way. And for a team that's been 2-10 so far, that requires a pretty big flip of the switch.
That would need to start right now.
And it needs to start
right now.
Right.
No more delaying it.
Last week.
It needed to start last week. You've dug a bigger hole, and A&M, like you said, Wes, starting to hit their stride a little bit. Seems to be one of the more winnable series on the roster, but we said that last weekend. So, if you can't make some headway this weekend, I might even join the camp of it's just not mathematically at this point very likely.
Maybe what A&M did last weekend against Tennessee should instill hope that there's still a chance to turn it around and hit your stride like they did. Now, again, they went into the season as the number 1 team in the country. They were perceived to be really, really good. South Carolina was not ranked coming into the season. They were projected to finish, 14th in the SEC as opposed to first like A&M was. And I think A&M was more of a team that just kind of eventually found itself halfway through conference play, but nevertheless, they still did and picked up those big wins on the road in Knoxville. Our debate about the South Carolina team was, do they have the talent to be able to win in the SEC? We know they can compete. They can come close against good teams, but they've not been able to get the job done against ranked opponents. Now, A&M is not ranked, but again, team that set a lot of the college football baseball world on notice last week with what they did. And we'll see if South Carolina can pull something out this weekend. Again, starting tonight, you gotta find a way to win the series to keep that hope alive.
Well, and you would think at some point a little baseball luck, if you can get into some close games, a little baseball luck would go your way. But they've competed in some games. Some of these games, frankly, they haven't. You look at some of the blowouts at Arkansas. Games got away from them against Mississippi State last week. And this is also a team, guys, that I think just needs everything to go their way for them to have a chance overall in a 3-game series in the SEC. And, I think injuries are not why this team is where they are. But of all the teams in this league, South Carolina needed to avert avoid those injuries. And then when you have, Jerzenbeck, remember how much Maneri talked him up preseason. They wanted him to be the Friday guy. It never looked right preseason, and then you find out there's the injury. You needed for Becker to be what we thought he could maybe be going into his final year, and then you needed Eskew to stay healthy. Like all the little ifs about this team just have not gone their way, and I think again that's not why they are where they are, but those are some things that in some of the close games, the loss to Oklahoma, where really you should have won game 3. Those things come into play, I think.
See what happens tonight. We'll talk about it tomorrow. Appreciate everyone at Pro Swing for allowing us to be out here the past couple of days. And Terry going to take things over from here. Is again, whole crew broadcasting live until 6 o'clock here at Pro Swing in Forest Acres on your Thursday on the Game.